r/ProRevenge, Episode 4. They tore up my grandfather's garden. He tore up their car. My dad told me this story a few years back. My grandfather lived in a really rural area in Georgia. This was around the late 1930s, early 1940. My grandfather owned a farm and had a garden. He had planted various veggies. Well, the only neighbors were about a mile away. And for some reason the neighbors would drive their Model T through the garden, tearing up the veggies. My grandpa would have to replant the garden. The neighbors kept doing this. So here comes the revenge part. My grandfather dug holes around the garden and stuck metal poles into the holes. He covered up the holes with leaves. A few days later the neighbors overthrew again. My dad said they tore the undercarriage out and had parts strewn all over the place. He couldn't remember what happened after that, but I don't think they did that again. A big company and its new manager held off our pay. We took in all their sales. This story is a year old and I hope this falls in the pro-revenge category. Premise: I work for a technology company, which falls in the startup, medium enterprise category. Let us refer to this as my company. We were working on creation of an Internet of Things, IoT, based product for large industries. But as we were new to the domain, we had hired a couple of industry experts to help us understand the domain and help us with understanding the gaps. This is a common practice. Enters bigger company, a company that has been dealing with devices for over 15 years now. They had a product in our same domain named Big Product. They had Big Product version 5 running in various places, which was built on legacy stack. Their new version, Big Product 6.0, tanked really hard among their clients and they needed someone who dealt with better technology to help them build their products, and that brought them to us. Becoming a bigger company was really good for our product as they had really good insights to bring to the table. As being a major player, they wanted us to build Big Product 7.0 instead of our product. But being a product company, that was out of scope. Thus we decided to be API providers for as to back-end capabilities while the UI looks different. Think of it as different buttons in your web page, but similar functionality. We were also responsible for bundling and deploying the application. Legally, we have signed a contract says my company clearly owns the code and they have no right to see or recreate our code, just to make us indispensable as API providers for bigger company. Things have been going well for both of us and the both products were shaping up well. Incident: suddenly, one day bigger company gets a new guy to handle the product. Big manager, and we see some red flags immediately. Major escalation and blame gaming for every deployment and everything. Eventually to a point where we were tired of the engagement with bigger company. We were targeting a major product expo for October 2019 and so were they. With the big manager came in some associates who kept asking technical questions and logic and stuff, and pestering our developers. This led to a suspicion that they were trying to micromanage and peep in on our tech stack, which made our team work on better encryption for our code, essentially making things even better for us. He changed few keys in the database and complained that there was a bug. We sealed off the database. He decided to not pay for the engagement, showing our incompetence. He also sold the license to the product without paying us to some of his clients. One fine day, they called a junior developer asking some doubts, which resulted in him joining a call with them. The link was soon shared in our team's chat and almost all of us, including my CEO, joined the call. Now, we promptly had things recorded. Our plan was simple: make sure that their product doesn't get presented for the major expo. We pulled sufficient proof to prove that there was non-compliance with our contract. The next day, we pull in the legal team and decide to call of the engagement. We also hand over the entire documentation on the same day. The team pulled an all-nighter. Also, we had seen this coming. One of the things that was scheduled for next week was to make their deployment HTTPS compliant. Now, for most on-premise deployments in plants, people really don't go with SSL-enabled products. But for the Expo, a secure deployment was mandatory. They did not have this, which meant they can talk about their product, but can't show it in real time. We actually were open with a try it out for free. Now, things look bad for them for the Expo, but they were still bigger players and had a larger client base. We changed the look of our product, and called it our product 2.0. It is the same product, but looks different, and word got out that big product 7.0 runs on our product 1.0, and man, our stalls were filled with their clients who were not pleased with their earlier product 6.0, the one that tanked. What big manager might have never understood is that what actually happened wrong for him. With every escalation mail he sent, our team became slower for him. We pushed him to a place where he decided to build on his own. What he did not realize was that was exactly what we wanted him to do. We had started the preparation of 2.0 in parallel for the Expo. We had every intention of ditching them before the Expo. We had no intention of upgrading their security for the Expo. Soon after the Expo, we cancelled license to all their clients, and when they came barging into the doors of bigger company, they pointed to us. We were more than happy to reinstate their products, and as a gesture for their inconvenience, we gave them our product 2.0 with no migration charges. Bigger company currently doesn't sell the software, or do they? They are pretty much irrelevant. You scared me with one of my biggest fears, so I made you go face to face with yours. Okay, so my cousin is a prankster. She likes telling jokes, and one of her favorites is during the holidays. She likes to tell me my uncle, her dad, is coming to pick me up. If I'm being honest, my uncle is not a nice man. He yells at me and everyone for everything. He lies about people to make them look bad and him look good. He makes fun of me for being overweight. He's very verbally abusive. It's gotten to the point where I've pretty much grey rocked him, which is basically no contact. And her favorite prank is telling me that he's coming to pick me up to take me to family gatherings, which I usually avoid going to if he's there, and 2 hours in the car with him. That's literally hell. So, a couple weeks ago, she lied and told me he called and was gonna come pick me up for my birthday. I felt like I was having a panic attack. I remember crying, hyperventilating. I was pacing back and forth trying to figure some way out of it. And yes, visiting him is just that bad. She started laughing. I told her that's not funny. She knows how I feel about that man. She said, "Don't you feel better now that you know he's not actually coming?" Quote, "I haven't forgotten that. It's been 2 weeks. I've had enough of that prank. I wanted to prank her, to kinda get her back. I remembered her biggest fear. Clowns. She's been scared to death of clowns since she was a kid. So, I had a friend, that's over 6 feet tall, dress up in a scary looking clown suit. I told her I got a free dinner for 2 coupon for my birthday to her favorite restaurant and wanted to share it with her to bait her. We left and I had my clown in place. The plan was to stop on the middle of this old rural road and stop the car at a specific spot where my friend was hiding. Everything went to plan. My friend parked his old junk car in the ditch on the side of the road. I stopped and said we need to check it out. See if they need help. While she's looking in it and looking around for the owner, I sneak back to my car. My clown runs out of an old barn and straight for us. She saw him, froze and started screaming. She ran to my car but I sped off before she could get in. I didn't abandon her. I just drove over a hill to where she couldn't see me from where the old car was and watched in my rearview mirror. She tried running with the clown chasing her, screaming for help. He caught up to her and she got on her knees and started crying. He laughed and revealed it was a joke. I drove back and started laughing with him. She told me that wasn't funny and I repeated what she told me. The "don't you feel better" line. She screamed and yelled the whole car ride at me. That I could have scared her to death. I told her that's how I feel when she tells me about my uncle. Hit my mailbox, damage your car. I live on a 4-lane street. Limit is 30 people, drive anywhere between 60 and 75. People kept hitting my mailbox. So I took a big piece of 2.5-inch steel pipe, welded a rectangle on top, and put my mailbox on that. Then I poured a ton of cement in the hole and mounted the big steel stand. It had to weigh 40 pounds. A car smashes into it and literally pushes the front of their car in. I was working in the yard when I heard it just smash, and I look in mailbox and post a 100% fine and their car front is smoking. They back away and drive off pretty quick. After a lifetime of abuse, I burned everything down and got what I wanted. I don't want to make this too disturbing, but read at your own risk. And it's really, really long. TLDR at the end. Throw away because people know my other account. Part 1, The Childhood. My parents have always had a toxic and mutually abusive relationship. Physical fighting, screaming matches, destruction of each other's property and then a short honeymoon phase. I witnessed it all. It was a cycle. Not only did they abuse each other, but my mother would physically abuse us with regular beatings and my father would neglect us, allowing her to hurt us. We, my siblings and I, would see the worst of it on weekends. They would have events that lasted days, and often argued well into the late hours. My mother would even take us from home out of spite for my father and have us stay with her abusive family members for days and sometimes weeks. This, of course, would interrupt school and put us behind other students. I would often come to school tired after being kept awake by an incident between them. In addition to that, I was prevented from building meaningful friendships outside of school because of how strict my parents were. I wasn't even allowed to take part in extracurricular activities because they insisted they were meaningless and would corrupt me. Part 2, A Child's Revenge. I became resentful and angry. I hated that they would torment me and my siblings and then could cuddle and be lovey-dovey with each other during the honeymoon periods of this cycle. It disgusted me. By the time I reached my early teenage years, I made a decision to sabotage them at any chance I got. It was easy, since I had been watching their patterns for years. I stole money from my father in small amounts. I destroyed emotionally valuable items from each of them. I threw out food they were saving as treats for themselves. I found receipts of purchases they were hiding from each other and left them out for the other to find. I destroyed clothing. I made each of them think I was siding with them after arguments, getting them to talk to me, and then took their dirty secrets back and forth to increase their distrust of each other. The funny part was they never suspected it was me. I was just repeating the same behaviors they had already been doing. So they always assumed it was the other one. Part 3, The Next Level Revenge. As the years passed, I knew I would be leaving the household when I was an adult. So I expanded on my plan. I knew that my younger siblings would suffer in a household with both of them together especially. After I left, I had been sexually abused in childhood by one of my mother's family members. My father and siblings didn't know, but my mother did. She knew what this person was and left me alone with him multiple times. She hinted to me that if my father ever found out about anything her family had done, I would be responsible for breaking up the family. That was how she got me to keep quiet about all of the abusive things her family members had done to us. Between the two of them, she was the worst. My father was really just neglectful and willfully ignorant of the deep levels of abuse she put us through. He thought that his role as a father was to go to work, bring home the money, and relax. I knew it would take something powerful to make him step up. I also knew that if they were exposed to the authorities, There was a chance my siblings would get separated or be forced to live with worst family members, whose evil deeds couldn't be proven. I waited all the way until a few months before I was prepared to leave the household. Then I told my father what had happened to me. I told him all the secrets my mother had kept from him regarding how her family would abuse us whenever she took us to visit and stay with them. My siblings were never sexually abused, but they were beaten and starved. I told him I was only telling him this now because I was planning on moving out and I needed him to wake up and protect my siblings after I left. I told him there wasn't any hope of saving anything with me, but there was still time for the others to still have a good life. He cried. It had the desired result. The news traveled through the grapevine in the family quickly. All of their secrets were out. It caused a divide and shook the foundation of everything. People who had married into my mother's family took their kids away quietly. The family's reputation was destroyed in the religious community as well. I got tearful calls from some of them begging me to forgive and forget. Some accused me of lying, or accused me of enjoying it, and even asked me to take it back. I had successfully set my family on fire. I left on schedule. I cut off contact with my mother. I had extreme limited contact with my father. I talked to my siblings constantly. My father stepped up. He cut my mother's family off and didn't allow them to see my siblings anymore. He divorced my mother a while later, once he had the means to take the youngest siblings away and live alone with them. My mother has extremely limited custody. The older ones had already moved out by that time. Part 4. The result. I now am living without any family in another state. I'm getting mental health treatment and living my life the best way that I can. I still talk to my siblings. They kept me updated on what's going on. My father is really taking care of the youngest ones and he helps out the older ones when they need it. They have a far better life than I had, because he cares now. We don't talk that much about what happened and what I did for them. We still have a bond, and that's all I want. TLDR. Parents and mother's family made my childhood an abusive living hell. So I destroyed my parents' marriage and exposed all of the abuses in the family. Plotted and manipulated the situation so my siblings stayed together and were taken care of. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more Reddit content.